Welcome to episode 33 of the On the Air podcast. Aiden Blank here in Fairfield, Connecticut, and down somewhere in Texas is TikTok's sportscaster, Sam Levitt. Sam, thanks for joining us, the voice of the Sod Poodles. How are you?
I'm doing well, Aiden, and you're right. I'm somewhere in Texas. I'm talking to you from Momentum Bank Ballpark in Midland, Texas. It's actually pretty ironic that it's a Friday we're recording this because we are 1 week away from the start of high school football season here in Texas. And earlier today, I actually drove over to Ratliff Stadium, home of the Permian Panthers of Friday Night Lights fame. So it's good to be down here, great area, Midland, Odessa, and we are getting ready for the Sod Poodles and the Rockhounds coming up here in just a bit.
I was going to say you're in Amarillo, but then I realized it's possible you're on the road, and you are. Nice. I like the press box. This is the second broadcaster. Vince Cotroneo from the A's was the first to have done it actually at the ballpark. They're so much cooler when we get to see it actually in your element at the ballpark.
Yeah, they have a nice setup here in Midland. They've done a great job with this building. Good press box, great view. So it's a good place to call a game, no doubt.
Have you actually gotten to see any of those Texas high school football games? I know that is all you think about with Texas football. Have you actually gotten to see some of those really fun, like the big stadiums, the huge crowds? Have you gotten to see that?
So the only Texas high school football I've ever seen in person, and it happened to be games that I called, was when I was in Corpus Christi. And we did a CCISD game of the week, and the crowds there were pretty good. And they had a great stadium called Buck Stadium that I did some games at, and that was fun. There are some bigger places as far as stadiums and capacity, like here in Midland, Odessa. I mean, you're talking about, Odessa Permian and Midland and some of these big rivalries in Amarillo, between Amarillo and Tascosa. There's big rivalries. So I haven't seen all of it. I've only seen South Texas with the Corpus Christi schools, but certainly I would love to see more of it and experience that one of a kind atmosphere that is Texas high school football.
What's it like to call one of those games? I'm sure that's got to be pretty cool with the crowd rocking and rolling and real high level football.
It's cool. I've done a little high school football. One of the big games I did when I did the Corpus Christi games was a game between Cal Allen, which is a big program in that area. I can't remember who they played, but it was for the district championship, and it was at Cal Allen. The place was rocking. We actually did the game from the roof of the press box, but it was a great view, and it was a lot of fun. It was loud. It was fun. I've done a little bit of high school work in Illinois, like I did the IHSA postseason one year. That was a lot of fun. I did a game in Naperville on TV that was awesome. So high school football is just it's a one of a kind experience. And when you have fans there and a lot of energy and there are big games, it's pretty cool. But I haven't done a ton. I mean, other than the IHSA stuff and the Corpus Christi stuff, I haven't done that much. And yeah, I'd be open to doing more, if it's going to be that kind of atmosphere.
How does a guy that grew up in New York and went to school in Evanston, Illinois, right near Chicago, end up in Texas and adjusting to the Texas lifestyle? Because I'm in Connecticut. I'm basically around that same area. I can't even fathom how you adjust to living in a warmer climate like Texas. What was that first like when you started getting down there in Corpus Christi and Amarillo?
I think my experience in bouncing around, even when I was in college, prepared me for coming down to Texas and enjoying and appreciating different ways of living, different parts of the country. I think that's one of the best things about our business is that it gives you the opportunity to live in different places, experience different things. You're right. I'm a kid from New York. If you would have asked me at 17, when I was your age, Aiden, did I even know where Amarillo, Texas was or Corpus Christi, Texas was? I would say absolutely not. I mean, if you would, I've been seeing this TikTok trend where people talk to the younger version of themselves. I don't know if you've seen this. And I can only imagine telling, the 16-year-old Sam about, where he's lived and the different places I've experienced. So, when I was in college, going to Cape Cod and going to Lansing, Michigan for my journalism residency, and then living in St. Louis, and it prepared me to experience different places, and I've loved it. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of my experience in this business is experiencing different things that I never could have imagined, different communities, different ways of life. And I've really enjoyed it. And I enjoy going on the road when we come to places like Midland, or we go to Tulsa, or we go to Wichita, or Frisco, or Corpus Christi, or Little Rock, or Springfield, Missouri. I mean, the list goes on and on. One of my favorite parts about baseball season and about the job in general is traveling and experiencing different towns and different places. So, I think to more directly answer your question, how do you get yourself ready to live in different places? You have to be open-minded, and go in with a big heart and an open mind and say, I want to really get a good experience out of this, and enjoy it, and enjoy something that's different than where you grew up.
We chatted about this before we started recording, but give us a little bit of background into how you got into the industry and why you chose Northwestern and kind of the beginnings of your career.
I was not one of those kids, kind of like you, Aiden, who's really into this at such a young age, and I applaud you for that. But I was not like you. I was not a kid or a teenager who was sitting with a toy microphone in front of the TV, imagining doing play-by-play, imagining being on air. That was not me. And I was a big sports fan. I was a huge Mets fan, a huge baseball kid. Like I was known as the Mets fan in high school growing up, and I would go to Shea Stadium on my own. And that was a huge part of my identity growing up. But I was not that kid or not that teenager that had dreams of doing this. I mean, I really got into it in college. I joined the student radio station when I got to Northwestern. That was really a function of me not making the club baseball team at Northwestern, which left me searching for other things to do and ways to be involved. I joined the student radio station, WNUR, and it took off. And I went from the College of Arts and Sciences at Northwestern, where I thought maybe I would be pre-med ultimately, to switching into Medill. And, I will say, even though I'm saying I wasn't that person growing up, I did have an interest in it in high school. I worked for the student newspaper. I had newspaper internships. I took journalism classes at NYU during a summer in high school. So the interest was there, but did I think before I joined WNUR that I was going to pursue it in a real way? No, it only really became something real in my head when I joined the student radio station, when I then decided to transfer into Medill, when I went to the Cape Cod League, and then it took off. And I look back now, and it just never stopped, and I've kept it going from then. But it was certainly, I think, compared to most people, a bit of a roundabout way. But I'm happy it transpired the way it did. I'm happy that I had a really well-rounded education at Northwestern, and I think not being a part of Medill and not being in that super intense broadcast journalism world in school to start was actually really helpful for me, because I was taking chemistry during the day, and to me that was like the really hard stuff. And then I would go to my journalism classes at night, and everybody would be freaking out. I'd be like, this isn't that hard compared to what I did all day with a 3-hour chemistry lecture. So I'm happy the way it turned out, and it certainly was a bit of a roundabout way.
I've asked a couple of different broadcasters who've kind of come on about this. Some of the more well-rounded guys that you would think about that are really good at talking about stuff outside of just sports. Does that make you a better broadcaster, taking a chemistry class and knowing whatever it is you learn in that chemistry class?
I'll take it beyond chemistry class. I think one thing that's really important is being well-rounded in life, in culture, in music, in movies, in everything. I think being a student of multiple arenas can really help you as a broadcaster when you're on air. I mean, I think about the different references you can pull. We talk about having conversations on air. I think it's really important to know about pop culture, to know about different books and movies, and have a well-rounded personality. I think it's actually a really, really important part of being a good broadcaster. And when you get to higher levels and you're just having conversation, like, one of the great things about, I'll give you just an example of a booth that I love, right? Like Gary Cohen, Keith Hernandez, Ron Darling. I've been lucky to get to know Gary, and he's an excellent guy. one of the things that I think makes that booth so good is that if you watch them night in, night out, I mean, they banter back and forth about so many different things, and that's true of any really good broadcast pairing or broadcast booth is the ability to go off script and, especially during baseball. I mean, I call a baseball game every night when we're on the road like I am in Midland right now. I'm alone. I mean, I don't just talk about the game. I mean, last night I started talking about the drive up here, because I drove from Amarillo, which I don't usually do. I usually get on the bus. I was talking about the oil fields and the places I stopped for lunch, and that's the nature of a baseball season, right? I cannot do 9 innings a night alone just talking about somebody's slider. I that's not me. Maybe guys can. I just can't. So anyway, again, I know that's kind of a roundabout answer, but I think being a well-rounded personality and having interests outside of sports is actually really, really important. And I know I've had conversations with friends of mine, and we've talked about that, how important that is. And it just makes you a better on-air personality.
You mentioned the Cape League, and I've talked to a couple of different guys that have gone through. In fact, last week we had the kind of the godfather of the Cape Cod Baseball Network, Dan Duva, on the podcast. What did you take away from your experience on the Cape? I know you were in Orleans, right?
I was in Orleans, and it's ironic you're asking me this because I literally talked about this last night on our broadcast because we had a right-hander up from High A, Brandon Fott, making his Double-A debut, and Fott went to Division II Bellarmine, and he really got discovered in the Cape Cod League when he pitched for Wareham, or Wareham. Now I can't remember if it's Wareham or Wareham. So it's funny you asked me this because I literally talked about this last night. I was talking about how I spent a couple of summers there. The Cape League was incredible for a number of reasons. Number one, I'll just shout out Dan Duva, great guy. You're right, total dean of the Cape League. He is, if you want to really trace it back, he is responsible for, on the broadcast side, really what that became. I mean, he was the first one to do it, and I don't know about the last few years, but I know up until a few years ago, still very involved in what Chatham does and some of the different operations. So shout out to Dan. Dan, Dan's been a friend and is a great guy. The Cape League, to me, number one, it's the first experience that many of us get in calling a game every night. And no matter what you do in college or high school for you, Aiden, you just can't replicate the experience of night in, night out calling a baseball game. And it makes you such a better broadcaster. It teaches you how to follow a team every day, how to mix up your stories, mix up the way you say things, do things, because throughout the course of even a 40, 45 game season like they have in the Cape, you're not going to talk about the same stuff every night. I don't need to hear, a guy's college stats every time he comes to the plate. You're calling the same guys every night. And it makes you such a better broadcaster just to be on air every night. Beyond that, it's just an ideal place, right? It's beautiful. It's got, to this day, still this very special, one of a kind, amateur nature about it. You can't replicate that feeling that it has in the ballparks. I mean, I say ballparks. I mean, Orleans plays at a middle school field. Chatham Veterans Field is the most stadium-like we have probably. But there's just something about it. There is. And the people. I still stay close with Kelly Nicholson, the Orleans manager. We've had lunch in LA before and text every now and then. And the other broadcasters you meet. I made two of my best friends, period, in the Cape League, one being Susie Milano, who works at UCLA now and is a tremendous friend. The other, Kevin Fitzgerald, who's done a great job in his career. And Kevin and I are still, I mean, he's one of my best friends. I mean, we were texting earlier today. And, Kevin, Susie and I worked together for those 2 seasons in Orleans. And the friendships you take away are really, really important. And on top of that, it's just so much fun, right? You're on Cape Cod. It's a summertime place. You're calling baseball every night. You have the best talent in college baseball in front of you every night. And it's a one of a kind experience. Like I worked as a waiter on the upper arm in Eastham for a summer, and it was an amazing experience. Like I think about working as a waiter and then going to wherever we were going that night and calling a baseball game, and it's a really fond memory. And I think from a broadcast and life perspective, it's a really really good experience.
So I'll tie that into your work now a little bit. Do you think those 44 games in 55 days really helped you prepare for the full minor league baseball season that you're doing now and have done for the past couple of years?
I would say yes and no. I would say yes in the sense that I do think the Cape League is a good barometer for if you really want to do baseball every day, because it is a small sample size of what it's like just in the sense of calling a game every day. I'll say, I guess I don't know in the sense of a 50 game season is not a 140 game season. Part of what I appreciate so much from spending the last few years in the minors is just how long a baseball season is. We play 140 usually here in the minors. This year we're playing 120, but it makes me appreciate, whether it's 120 or 140, how long a major league season is, which is 162, obviously. And from the broadcast perspective, how many games that is with the travel, the ability to make it happen every night. And we talk about what the Cape League teaches you. I think one of the things it taught me, and I'll preface this by saying that I was horrible, okay, when I was in the Cape League, like really, really horrible, okay? So I preface that by saying every night, when I thought it was great at the time, but every night what I was doing was not very good. But it does teach you, and I think minor league baseball is the same. It does teach you on nights where, like a pitcher, when they don't have their best stuff, it teaches you how to broadcast. Maybe when you don't have your best stuff, when you're feeling tired because you've played 14 games in 14 days and you've been on the bus for 10 hours the night before. Very realistic situation. When your voice isn't feeling as strong as it normally does, maybe you have an itch in your throat or whatever it might be. It teaches you just how to do it night in, night out. And I know major league guys deal with that too. I mean, with the travel and with the games every night, it can be a tough schedule. So yeah, it's a great experience. And I think it will test you and see if you really want to do this every day.
How do you pace yourself through a 140 or 120 game season?
That's a great question. Michael Coffin, the voice of the Corpus Christi Hooks, once told me a great 2 words, and that is invest. Oh, sorry, 3 words. Invest in yourself. That's how you do it. You pick days and you invest in yourself. And what that means, it's up for interpretation. I think what it means is that you just have to pick your spots and pick your days where you pace yourself. And if that means, like today, like going out and getting a cup of coffee or going to work at a coffee shop and doing something nice for yourself, or spending the morning, exercising, taking care of yourself, eating good. I think that's how you do it. And you pick your spots and you pick your days where, maybe there's a day where, and I've done this before, maybe there's a day where you show up to the ballpark a little bit later than usual. You don't roll in until 4:30. And you know what? On that day, let's say you don't, and I'm not advocating for not prepping. That's not what I'm saying. But maybe on that day, out of an 140 game schedule, you say, you know what? Today, I'm just going to write my lineups in. I'm going to write the stat lines in, a couple of notes here and there, but I'm not going to go crazy. And what I actually think that sometimes does, again, it makes you a better broadcaster, because maybe that day you're not so prepped to the point where you're not just looking around. Maybe that day you're more of, you know what, today, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just kind of got to look around and, see what I can talk about. Oh, look, the kids are playing in the playground. Let me talk about that. Oh, the flags are waving towards left. Let me talk about the wind. Look at the sky up there. Wow, that's interesting. Oh, I looked down. I don't have any more notes on him. And by the way, we always have plenty of notes because we do the game notes and we have packets and packets of notes. Okay. But I think that's how you do it. Again, roundabout answer. But I think you make sure that you're seeing the perspective outside the baseball season, because I do think baseball season can be very demanding. It's every day, and it can be tiring. just really, really grueling. So I think it's important that you remember there's a world going on outside baseball season, and outside the job you're doing, and that truly our game and our job is a very small part of what's going on in the world. And I guess back to those three words: invest in yourself. Make sure that you feel good, and that you're taking your physical and mental health as a priority.
Do you ever feel more relaxed in those situations where you're just a little bit less prepared, or have a little bit less written down than usual? I've kind of always found, whether I don't get a ton of information by choice or by it's a high school soccer game, I don't have a ton of information. Do you feel more relaxed? I always feel like I'm able to breathe a little bit more and kind of enjoy myself a little bit more, just take it all in.
I wouldn't say more relaxed. I would say that when I do baseball on the radio, especially here on the road, where my sole job is to broadcast the game on the radio, I would say for the most part, I find it pretty relaxing, believe it or not. And that's one of the reasons I love doing baseball, is it comes pretty naturally to me. And I feel like sometimes I can just sit back and call the game, and you can just kind of like, even last night I was thinking about this a little bit. I'm just sitting here, I've got a baseball in my hand that I found here in the booth when we got here, and you're just looking around, and talk about whatever you want. I find doing baseball at times, not all the time, but at times, really therapeutic, really relaxing. And sure, on those nights where maybe you're not, prepped out the wazoo, and you're going a little bit more off feel in what you see, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. Yeah, I would say maybe it is more relaxing those nights. But on the whole, I find doing baseball on the radio pretty relaxing. And I think it should be that way, because I think baseball on the radio should sound that way most of the time. Now, you'll have your moments, your innings, your at bats where you've got to rev up the energy and rev up the intensity, and make people understand what moment that is. But for 99% of the broadcast, I'd say, I mean, it's, you're just talking like this. And I'll say this, Aiden, it took me a while to really understand that. I talk about being horrible in the Cape Cod League. That's something I didn't really understand in the Cape Cod League. When I was on play-by-play, I was always at 110 on the energy meter, or however you want to put it, 11 on the energy meter. I was just way too much, every pitch, every at bat. But I think that's the development of a baseball broadcaster, is understanding that it's supposed to be relaxed and chill, and most of the time it should sound just like we're talking right now.
You kind of answered my next question already. What sort of changes do you make when you're at home versus on the road? Because I know when you're at home, most of the minor league guys, you have to do the radio call, but at the same time, you also have to consider there's a TV audience on the road.
Mhm.
Obviously, tonight you won't have that, but what sort of changes do you make?
You make a great point. That's one of the big ones, is that at home, we are either on MILB TV or local TV, and I'm also on the radio at the same time. So you're exactly right. That's one of the big differences. I always do the game as a radio call, but certainly at home there are more TV elements to it. And I've it's a hard balance, because I never want to make the radio listener feel like I'm doing something they can't see, obviously. But we also have a TV audience, and so I'll reference replays a lot, or they'll show something on the TV on my monitor, and I'll start talking about it, or talk about it in a sense that only a person watching on TV would really understand. So it does get tricky at times. What I try to do is I try to strike that balance between see it, say it, on the TV side, which obviously what I mean by that is, if the TV broadcast shows something, I want to talk about what it's showing on there. But at the same time, keeping your radio audience in mind. So I try to strike a balance the best I can. Beyond that, the biggest difference between home and road is just the amount of responsibility I have at home, as far as TV pregame show, content we do at home, all the different events and things around the game, and things with fans, and auctions for jerseys after the game. The list goes on from just a work and content and broadcast perspective and beyond. On the road, primarily it's do the game on the radio, do social media, I do work on video content. Like I was cutting one of our first thirds just now, and I'm going to post that after we get off. So, there is some other work on the road, but it's so different because today I show up at the ballpark at 2:30, and my main responsibility is get ready for the game and all the things that entails. But at home, from the TV pregame to a lot more. There's just a lot more on the schedule, and in my responsibility box. But both are good. Both are different. I enjoy being at home. I enjoy being on the road, and I like that we get to do both.
You mentioned the video elements because I know you kind of brand yourself as this social media guy, one of the younger guys across minor league baseball. When I texted a friend of mine who was a big fan of yours that I was interviewing you today, he goes, "Oh, it's TikTok sportscaster." What what role do you see social media and TikTok and those kind of fun little videos? What role do you see that playing in the industry over the next bunch of years?
I think it's really important because I think the industry and what we do is changing. Now, there will be, I'm sure, broadcasters out there who disagree with me. And let's just talk about it for, for the time being in the minor league baseball sense. My opinion is that in 2021, it's really important that if you want to work in minor league baseball, that you're bringing more to the table than just calling a game on the radio. Because I think, unfortunately, not unfortunately, I think the reality is that a lot of people can call a good game on the radio. And to me, it's about, when we talk about these really competitive jobs, even at single A and double A and triple A and below, general managers and folks who hire are looking for people who can add value to their team. I guess a better way to put it is, how are you going to differentiate yourself, right? And you can do that in a number of ways. It can be by sales, it can be by media relations, it can be by video work, it can be by a versatile skill set across all those. But to me, that's part of the reason why I think it's important. Is I think you just there's a necessity with the way that the industry has gone, that you have to be versatile and bring many different elements to the table. And that's the way you stand out from an applicant pool. I guess in a greater sense, I just think the world and the industry is changing. The idea that, and we do games on the radio every night. We have a whole radio network for the Sod Poodles. So I'm not trying to put a negative spin on radio, but the reality is that people are consuming the game and content in so many different ways, especially the younger generation. I mean, you talk about TikTok, right? I mean, it's been one of the cooler things for me this year. I did not think that it would get as big as it has, just the videos I do and the silly words they make me say, and going live for an inning or two every once in a while, and it's been fun because it's given me a different perspective on how the upcoming generation is consuming content. And I think it's consuming it in a really different way than listening to games on traditional radio, or even, on their phone or app, whatever it might be, watching games on TV. And I just think for a broadcaster in 2021, you have to be in tune with that and understand that, times change, and the way games are consumed and content is consumed, it changes. I mean, you look back 30, 40 years ago, think how different that is to what we have today. And that'll keep happening. That's the nature of life and the nature of the world, especially in this tech age where it's moving so quickly. So I just think from every perspective, and again, this is my opinion, that for any broadcaster coming up, any broadcaster that wants to work in the minor leagues and beyond, I think it's really important and can only help when you are versatile, when you put an emphasis on social media and you have that understanding that fans consume games in a variety of different ways. So if the way people are going to consume baseball content for me is via TikTok and via telling me to say the word milk over and over in the sixth inning, and then I do it, like, for as for as different as it might be, I just think you have to kind of roll with it and be open-minded about how people get engaged and how people enjoy games and really get invested in the sport. I think we need that, in baseball broadcasting, is energy and an open-mindedness to how the younger generation is consuming it.
So you mentioned that this is kind of how you set yourself apart
Mm-hmm.
from other broadcasters. I watched a video clip on YouTube about, I believe it was the general manager, the owner of the Sod Poodles, who was talking about the hiring process for you and how there were about 100 applicants and they narrowed it down to 5, and you happened to be one of those 5. And of course, you got chosen. What other things do you do in a job interview, in an application, when you're applying for a job, that kind of set you apart from the average broadcaster?
I can only speak for me. What's always helped me is the social media and video work. And when I was with the Gateway Grizzlies, my first job out of college, I was hired by a great guy named Adam Young, who would be great for you to have on the podcast, Aiden, who's at New Mexico State now and is a really good broadcaster. Um, when I got there, they put a big emphasis on doing video work. I'll even take it a step further. When we were in the Cape Cod Baseball League, Kevin Fitzgerald and I say this confidently, we were doing more video work than a lot of teams. And that was, would record every pregame interview we did. We would do 2 a night. Everything Susie did, we would record those things and post them and post highlights every night. And there were a couple of other teams who were doing that, like Chatham. Chatham was always the best. They had the best equipment, the best setup, the most help. I don't know if that's still true to this day, because I think a lot of the operations have really improved. But Chatham was like the Yankees of the Cape Cod Baseball League. And Kevin and I always were aiming to match what Chatham was doing. So I say that to say that that's where it started for me. Was putting an emphasis on video and social media and doing more than just doing play-by-play and calling the game. That carried into the Gateway Grizzlies, where I did similar things. We had sponsored elements that were videos once per week, interviews, all different kinds of things. I would do a video about baseball's best burger, the burger we have between a Krispy Kreme donut. And guess what? That stuff then got me to the hooks in Corpus Christi, because if you talk to people in Corpus Christi that were part of that hiring process, they'll tell you that the thing they loved about me was the fact that I did all that and I was versatile. And they at the time already had a TV pregame show and did a lot of content and needed somebody who could be kind of a face on camera and a content creator in addition to doing play-by-play. So that led me to the hooks. And then, I had better equipment and more resources at the hooks. People like JD Davis and Neil Roseanne and Brianna Santiago, they were huge helps, and we created some really great stuff. And then you look at Amarillo, it was the same thing. And what Tony said in that interview, I know what you're talking about from the PBS story. Again, I know that one of the things they really liked about me as an applicant was the ability to create content, to host, to do play-by-play, and do all of it at a high level and be versatile. Because again, I think from Tony's perspective and the organization's perspective, you have to remember the Sod Poodles were a brand new team in 2019. So I think they looked at me as somebody who could usher in that new brand and new era of baseball. And I told them as I was interviewing and once I got the job, because the great thing about the job in Amarillo was that it was a blank canvas. And I could create whatever I wanted. And they gave me a lot of freedom. So when I said, hey, we did this great TV pregame show in Corpus Christi, I want to do that. We'll have sponsors on, we'll have players on. It'll be 3-4 segments a night. We'll talk baseball and beyond, things in the community. And you might not be able to see what it is right now, but I promise once we get started, you will love it. And we did it. And guess what? We still do it in 2021. And it's a big part of what we do pregame. So for me, it's that's how I always stood out. Now, again, everybody's different. I think when we're talking just, about minor league baseball and college sports and applying for jobs like that, I think you can create versatility and stand out in a number of different ways, whether that's what I've done or sales or media relations or whatever it might be. But I do think it's important, bottom line, what I would recommend, again, just my opinion, but what I would recommend to anybody is that you be more than just a play-by-play broadcaster, because I think that's the way the world and the way the industry is going in 2021.
How do you go about making connections in an organization that had never existed up until you got the job? A lot of guys, obviously, when you got hired in Corpus Christi, that was an organization that had a lot of footing in minor league baseball. But when you got hired by the Sod Poodles, a brand new team, brand new fans, brand new community, brand new players, how do you go about establishing yourself within the community with the fans and also kind of on the organizational side with the players and the ownership and the guys that are actually at the ballpark every day?
I'll start with the players and staff and coaches because that is an important part of calling baseball every day is having a good relationship with the folks in the clubhouse, but also having a professional one at the same time that's also kind of personal. I think it's a mix of everything, and I've been really fortunate no matter where I've been in baseball to have really good coaching staffs and managers who have treated me really well and been great to me. So the way I think you do that on that side is that, you know, you're a professional, but you're also in a sense a friend. And in minor league baseball, you have a unique relationship to these players and to these coaches because you get on the bus with them and it's a grind. You get on the 10-hour bus, but you're on there too. And you're typically the only non-coach, trainer, strength and conditioning coordinator player that's on that trip. So I think the road is where you build a lot of those relationships. So I think it's just with those people, it's just the balance between being a pro, but also kind of being, you know, one of the team in a sense. And but at the same time, being able to get on the bus after you said, you know, Johnny Williams made an error at shortstop and it wasn't a great play. Like you have to have that simultaneously have a really good relationship and also have that line where you can be a good broadcaster too, right? So that's with the players and the coaches. With the organization, I mean, I think it's easy in minor league baseball because you spend so much time with everybody. I'll focus on the fans. You know, one of the things that's been very special to me about Amarillo and about this job with the Sod Poodles is my relationship to the fans. And to me, it was easy in 2019. You know, because you're dealing with a brand new fan base. They love this team. The place was sold out every night. It's easy. You know, you just have to be a good guy and accessible. And for me, a lot of it comes from being very active on social media and communicating with the fans and doing things a little bit differently and having fun and doing our TV pregame show on the field and being out there and just having a really friendly mindset about it. Like, I want these fans to know me. You know, I don't sit up in the perch of the broadcast booth thinking I'm up here and the fans are down there and I need there to be this separation between us because I'm a broadcaster. That's not the way I've ever viewed it. I want the fans to know who I am. I want them to feel comfortable coming up to me saying hi. I want them to be able to email me and message me and get them involved in the broadcast. And in 2019, to me, it was easy because you're dealing with such an excited fan base. To boot, the team won a title, and it was a magical year in so many ways. So I think it's really important. Like, to me, the job of a broadcaster is one of the primary jobs is to help create that special connection between a team and the fans. I think that's one of your primary goals every night when you're on the air. And with a first-year team in a place that didn't have affiliated baseball in nearly 40 years, you know, it was easy. I mean, you know, I think you really have to mess up if you can't accomplish that every night.
I know you like to interact with the fans a lot through email and through social media. It's something I've had a little bit of experience with. I'm curious. I'm always curious when we have guys who do that kind of thing. How do you work that into a broadcast? How do you like to work in the social media comments and the emails and people telling you where they're listening from?
I usually pick a half inning or two, you know, or a moment or two during a game. You know, when we get emails or tweets or Facebook or Instagram messages or now on TikTok, right? I just go for it, you know, or as we're coming back from an inning, saying a couple shout outs to get to, you know, Johnny listening on 9:40 a.m., you know, Mary listening on the 940 app, or this person listening in New York, whatever it might be. I just think, again, it creates a connection to people. And you don't want to overdo it. I mean, people are listening to the game. And if I go on for 2 minutes, giving every shout out in America to somebody that's listening, especially when it comes to like TikTok stuff, right? Yeah, I always want to be mindful of the person that's listening, right? That maybe is just listening in their cars, like, what is this guy talking about? But I do think for maybe as silly as it sounds, that when you include people, it strengthens your bond to them and their bond to the broadcast. And that's one of the reasons that people love watching and listening to baseball, because let's be honest, it's a very slow, methodical sport. To me, one of the primary reasons is that it's there every single night. And I want people to feel, both in Amarillo and beyond, like the Sod Poodles and myself are a companion that they can turn on every single night. And they know we're there. They know what I'm about. They know about me. They know about the team. And again, that special connection to the team, I think that's what you're trying to create. And I think having people involved and making the broadcast more interactive is really important.
How do you go about building your audience on TikTok and on social media? I know obviously with the broadcast, it's pretty easy. The audience kind of just comes with the broadcast because they're
Right.
fans of the Sod Poodles. But how do you build an audience on TikTok and on social media?
So let's focus on TikTok first, because
Sure.
again, like I said, the TikTok thing has been really fun and really interesting. I'm approaching 300,000 followers, which I is wild, because I never thought I'd get to that kind of number. I think on there, not to toot my own horn, but it takes work. I mean, you need to put out videos and come up with ideas and be creative and create through stretches of time where, your videos don't get that many views. Like, it, as silly as it's, TikTok's a really interesting platform because it's so random. You can post something that you get 2 million views. The next thing you post could get 2,000 views, no matter how many followers you might have. But on TikTok specifically this summer, it started for me in the winter, when I would just do videos about, hey, this is kind of a behind the scenes thing. This explains this thing about broadcasting. This explains, whatever it might be. They were very informational. And I think one of the things that really helped me was that it's a very different content than I think a lot of what's on there. So I think when people scroll, they kind of stop and say, oh, that's interesting. And then, I've had almost like different seasons of it through the past, 6-7 months. It's gone from, videos when I was doing basketball and more informational, to all the different stuff with baseball, to people wanting me to say different words. For as silly as that sounds, people seem to really, really love those videos and love when I do that. Why? Who knows? But again, to me, I think you just have to roll with this stuff sometimes. And I'm one of those people, I consider myself a very serious broadcaster. So at times for me, I think it's a little difficult to lean into it, because I want to be taken seriously. But at the same time, I think what I'm trying to do right now is like I said, just lean in and be open-minded. Where it eventually goes with this TikTok stuff, I don't know. But it's been fun, and it has been awesome to have so many people reach out on there and comment and really enjoy what I do in my work and inspire some people to pursue broadcasting. Like, I get those messages now a lot. And to be honest, Aiden, I'm not trying to make it sound like a bigger deal than it is. I'm really not. But over the past couple months, I've been stopped walking in some of these ballparks by, teenagers who follow me on there. So that's been really weird, but really fun, and I appreciate it. So, again, we talk about social media, and I'll loop this back into the social media conversation. How do you build a following? I think number one, you just put stuff out there. I don't, on other platforms, I don't have the biggest Twitter following ever. I've got, whatever, 4,500 or something like that. Same thing on Instagram. It's like 3,000, something like that. By the way, I don't know that those numbers mean anything. Who knows, right? But I think the one commonality of all social media, and you can, look at people like Gary Vaynerchuk, who talk a lot about this, and all these different content creators, is you've got to post, and you've got to put stuff out there. And even if it's a little off brand, and I'll be honest, some of the TikTok stuff, like, I'm kind of like, oh my goodness, like, I can't believe I'm actually doing this, or like doing this video. But it's about having fun, and we talk about a changing landscape, right? Like, who knows where it eventually goes? I mean, we hear all these different places now looking to broadcast live games. Who says that that doesn't happen on a TikTok one day, or whatever it might be? So, uh, I'm not. Let me put it this way: I'm definitely not the social media expert. I'm really not. But some of it has been really interesting and really, really fun, and I appreciate all the support on TikTok and beyond.
I gotta learn. I gotta get into this because my girlfriend does it, but like as like the dances. I've
Hmm.
never thought of it as kind of like the vlog sort of stuff because I always felt like it got such a bad rap. It's like the dances. It's not for
Well, so
serious
let
stuff.
me let me tell you something funny, okay? So before I was even on TikTok, um, the first TikTok I was ever a part of, my brother was the original TikToker. Now, my brother, his name is Mikey. He's 4 years younger than me. He lives in LA. Okay, he's a film guy. Um, and he was TikToking, and he had some pretty big ones that were very funny, and they were all over the place, and more of the, oh my goodness, I would never put this on TikTok kind of thing. But they were really funny, like really, really well done. And we did a recreation of our bar mitzvah dance. This was in the fall, so this was October. And this thing is going wild. Like, I'm getting text messages from people I haven't heard from in years. Okay. This thing went wild. It was like at 600,000 views, like in a few hours. And it opened my eyes. Like, oh, that's really interesting. Now, at first, I wasn't doing anything related to my job. I was like posting these music videos and stuff like that because I didn't know what I was doing, right? Because I had the same thing about it where I was like, I don't know what to do on here. It's kids and teens, and they're doing the dances. But the cool thing about TikTok is, I think now it's very early in its existence. I think now it's turning into all different kinds of things, and I scroll on my page, and I mean, I see everything from dances to there's this page of this lady in Austin who's a beekeeper that does these beekeeping videos that are just like insane, to like this guy who does these 3-minute singing mashups to everything in between. So it's funny. Like, the first TikTok I ever was in that really blew up was that dancing video, and it's funny to see how I've kind of evolved it in the last year or so. But yeah, it can be fun, and we'll see what happens with it. So it's you just got to, I think, keep an open mind and kind of roll with it.
There's your next guest for the on-field pregame show, the beekeeping lady from TikTok,
Yeah. Well, she lives in Austin, and she posts these videos about
Texas.
her. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Couldn't tell you.
she posts these videos about her beekeeping, and she literally scoops the bees up like with her hands. Like, it's the wildest thing. And she's huge on TikTok. Like, she's got like 8 million, I don't know how many followers, some sort of million followers. But yeah, it's funny stuff. I can't get enough of it. I try not to scroll that much on some days because I'm lying in bed some nights and I'm
You
just
get
like
lost, yeah.
scrolling. So, in fact, an idea I've had for TikTok is they need to make a way where you don't have to scroll anymore, where it just finishes the video and it goes up. Yeah, because sometimes I don't want to hold.
There goes
my
3
phone,
hours of your day.
Right. What if I just like prop my phone up and it was just going? I'd be like watching TV. So if anybody from TikTok is listening this deep in the podcast, that's an idea on me.
All right. Last 3 questions, and then we'll let you get
Yes.
back to prep because I
Yes.
know you got a game tonight. Broadcast you've always wanted to meet, dead or alive?
It's a great question. That's a really, really good question.
That's always the one everybody stalls on. And I really should stop asking that first.
I would say probably I'll give you a few, like the original
Sure.
Mets broadcasters, Lindsey Nelson.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on who the original was. Folks like Lindsey Nelson, Ralph Kiner, Bob Murphy, just that group of broadcasters that were around those 60s Mets and the 69 Mets. I think it would be fascinating. I grew up listening to Bob Murphy, and I never met him. Ralph Kiner. I mean, these are people that I grew up listening to, and I've been very fortunate to meet Gary Cohen and Howie Rose, and and call them, friends and mentors now, and they're amazing guys and amazing broadcasters. I would say that that group, again, not to get away from the question being one, but the Lindsey Nelsons and the Ralph Kiners, some of those broadcasters that were a part of those original Mets teams in the 60s when they were really bad and then they win it in 69, the Miracle Mets. I think that would be awesome.
Stadium, or I guess in your case, probably city that you've most enjoyed traveling to on the road? I would think baseball, but I know you've done many other sports with
Yeah.
basketball, with Loyola Chicago and Northwestern. Doesn't have to be a baseball stadium.
Yeah, I would say I'll give you one from our league. I love going to Tulsa. I think Tulsa's a great city. The downtown is awesome. It's my favorite stop in the formerly known Texas League, now the AA Central. So I'll go with Tulsa. I love Tulsa. Great town, great food, great people, and great ballpark, great broadcast spot as well.
What advice do you have to young kids that want to get into the industry? And I think this probably could mean a lot coming from you, someone who has gone up and kind of is the millennial version of a sportscaster.
I would say my number one piece of advice, I'm going to not flip the questions. I'm going to divert it because I think we've already talked about some of you know, the versatility and obviously hard work and making connections. All these things are really important. The one piece of advice I would give people in college, coming out of college, in high school, would be enjoy it. Enjoy uh, the journey of it, the process of it. It's something that I wish I would have done more, um, especially in college, in St. Louis, all the different stops. Even now in Amarillo, sometimes there are days and weeks that go by where I wish I would just enjoy it more. I think this is an easy business to get caught up in what's going to be next. And early on in my career, when I was out of school, I was solely focused on many days about what was next, and not just in the macro sense of, okay, where's my next baseball job going to be, when am I going to get to this place. I think in the micro sense too, of like, you know okay, baseball season ends September 2nd. What am I doing on September 4th? How am I going to keep moving forward during basketball? I just think it's really important. This is a broadcast business, and the type of lifestyle that is supposed to be fun. I mean, you're watching sports, you're traveling, the pay early on, I don't need to tell anybody probably listening to this, in most cases, it's not great. Like, you need to enjoy it. Take time to make friends, to go out to dinner with people, to meet up with people after games, to, enjoy every aspect of it, from the work to being around the players to being around people you're working with. That would be my number one piece of advice, because I think if you would ask a lot of people that are a few years out or my age, and I think a lot of my friends in the business would agree with this. I think a lot of us would say, you wish you enjoy it more, and just not be as laser focused on what's next. Enjoy the moment, enjoy what you're doing, and also, again, long answer, but also focus on getting better. See, that for me, Aiden, if I'm being totally honest with myself, with you, with your audience, that's something that for the first few years of my career, really until I got to Corpus Christi, I was not focused enough on just getting better every day. I was more focused on making connections, on figuring out how I was going to find what was going to be next, rather than focusing on what was really important, which was, how am I going to become a better broadcaster today? And how am I going to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday? And so I'll leave you with those two thoughts. Enjoy it, and worry about how you can be a better broadcaster, a better person, a better professional, because I think, well, everything you do is important, from a networking side to a hustling side to a working hard side of things. I think, if you're not focused on improving every day and fixing things that you need to fix, and I will tell you, still to this day, I've got a lot I need to improve on every day. And certainly In the earlier stages of my 20s, like, I had a lot to improve on, and I wasn't as focused in those early 20s as I should have been on just that, on just getting better. So enjoy it and try to get better every day. Those would be my two pieces of advice for people getting into the business, aside from the last hour of everything else we talked about.
If people want to find Sam Levitt online or on a broadcast, where can they do that?
So let's talk about social media. So Twitter, Sammy Lev, SAMMYLEV. Same thing on Instagram. TikTok, Sammy Levitt. So you just add the ITT at the end. I think if you type in TikTok Sportscaster, it might pop up as well. I don't, because it's at some.
You're that famous.
Well, no. At some things on the screen it says that, and something, but my username is Sammy Levitt, LEVITT, and then SAMMY is Sammy. Broadcast wise, we still have 4 or 5 weeks left in the baseball season. If you want to listen, you can listen, assuming that most of your listeners are not in the Texas Panhandle. You can listen at newstalk940.com, 940.com. And if you want to watch, you can watch on MILB TV. I do think that we have one of the most, big league type minor league broadcasts, top to bottom, in the country. We put together a really good product. I'm and everybody's really proud of it. So I encourage you to listen. If you don't want to listen to the big leagues one night, tune into some AA Amarillo sod poodles, and I promise you won't be disappointed.
Well, Sam, I will say this is one of the most fun interviews that I've done in a long time for this.
The bar must have been pretty low then.
Well, appreciate you coming on. I've admired your work for a while on social media and on the broadcasts, and appreciate you coming on. This is one I wanted to do for a while, and glad we could work it out.
Absolutely. And Aiden, keep up the great work. I've watched you from afar, and the work you've done, the hustle you have, the passion you have for it, even as somebody in high school, is outstanding. Like we were talking about, I was nowhere close to you in high school. I mean, it wasn't even on my radar. Quite frankly, probably in college, I was nowhere close to you, and it will really be a big benefit to you. And I'm wishing you the best in your career and moving forward. You've got a really bright future ahead.
I appreciate it.